integrity is a I guess it's a mystery, and it relates to everything. Marriage relates to business, relates to friendship, and I think the critical thing we sometimes look and see if there's a pattern or some way we could standardize something like that being successful. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. My wife Sandra and I were married over 51 years, and we co-labored in every aspect of ministry and life. I love her with all my heart. And I think over the years, if I were to talk about relational integrity, particularly when it comes to marriage, because I've known the McCants 30 of their 40 years, got to meet them when they were younger people, and had a chance to interact with them when the children were all smaller, much smaller. And there's several things that I have learned over the years when it comes to relational integrity. It's good always to understand personality dynamics. That's the beginning place. Whenever I've married a lot of couples over the years, I guess probably several hundred if you look at it, married couples over the years. And I always say to them that when you say yes to one, you say no to all others, and that marriage is an investment, and marriage is war. It's war. Two selfish people coming together, and each one are having to learn. It takes about 3 to 5 years for it to gel. It really does. And during that period of time, you learn some critical things. You learn that words are healers, and words are revealers. That the right words spoken at the right time in the right place with the right spirit can work miracles. One of the critical things you learn about relational integrity, two things you learn to do. You learn to remember and you learn to forget. Some things you simply just have to forget as part of, because I believe that the strength of every relationship, believe it or not, is forgiveness. It's not love. And so when I married couples over the years, the critical thing that I try to present to them, do you know one another? Do you know anything about personalities? What kind of personalities? I have done studies on that, the choleric, the sanguine, the melancholic, and the phlegmatic. The sanguine is the one that generally is a born leader. They have to be sort of in charge. They will take the lead if no one else will. They will. Strongly opinionated, um, very could be very biased in a lot of ways, but very strong. The melancholic is more introspective. That's the one you never quite know what they're thinking. They're probably generally the most creative people, most creative. Then you have the sanguine. The sanguine is the spontaneous person. That's the child that always asking forgiveness rather than permission. They do things right on an instant. Then you have what I call the phlegmatic. That's someone that likes structure, like organization. And so I've learned a critical thing is learning one another's personality, because that's the most difficult thing that you have to deal with when you're dealing with relationship. How another one of the things. I didn't have an understanding of the five love languages back then, but I think I knew them before people called them. There are some things that people desire, or can I say, there's a secret to the best in me bringing out the best in you. And sometimes the worst in us can bring out the worst in other people. Well, the five love languages was something that came out over the last, I guess, 15 to 20 years. It is said that in a couple who were married, this pastor had counseled hundreds, probably thousands of couples, and he found out that they loved one another, they cared for one another, they were honest and open and all of those kind of things, but there was always something missing. And he found out that there was an aspect in their life, something in their life that made them very happy, made them very content. And he considered these things to be the five love languages. One was the giving of gifts. Some people seem to respond or just love, enjoy receiving gifts. And that's not just children, that's even adult. When you give a gift, it says to them that you care. There are others who have to receive a word of affirmation when they've done something good, something right. They like from someone to say thank you, that you've done a job well done. There's some who need attention, and that's all of us, because all of us have a need for affirmation. But it appears that when you give them your undivided attention, um, I shared with some people the other day, we were talking about prayer. You mentioned prayer. And I said, prayer is not warfare. When you're talking to God, you don't talk to the devil at the same time. You'd be offended if someone is talking to you and they're talking to another person at the same time. I've had that happen on the phone. someone is talking to me and they're talking to someone else and another person, I just hang up because I figure you're not talking to me. You don't have time to talk to me. Well, when you give people your undivided attention, that's a critical thing. And there are others. The giving of gift, I said, affirmation, positive words been spoken many times. And so those five love languages they found out brings out the best in people. It causes them, number one, to respond in a positive way. And you found out what they are. There's some things that have been developed over years. I found people where integrity is really big with them. Integrity is big. It's honest. Being honest, not lying to them, telling the truth. That's big with them. My mother, when I was a child, she used to tell me, always be honest with me. And I was honest with her. And that woman beat me. And so I figured out being honest with her was a liability. So I started to lie to her because I felt that was safe for me. But some people need that. The idea of a sharing of gifts is very important. But the biggest thing is that things that other people need, and when we discover, and it takes about it's almost a lifetime to discover what those things are. As I said before, I think the strength of a relationship, believe it or not, is trust. And trust is something that takes a long time to develop. Uh, Trust, believe it or not, is an investment in character, like love. Love is an investment in people, but the dividends are not always, how could I say, reciprocal or guaranteed. I find that marriage is not an equal opportunity employment. The stronger reaches out to the weaker. I found that. I found that in a marriage, there's always a stronger, there's a weaker. And one of the things in a relationship you need to find out what that is very soon. Every marriage needs what I call a weather forecaster because marriage, it has problems. Marriage is war. Marriage is dealing with issues. Marriage is dealing with issues that come against you sometimes. And I discovered in a relationship, peace is where you put your mind. You want peace in a relationship? Peace is war. It's warring against every idea, every thought that seeks to invade your consciousness to contradict God. He said, they keep you in perfect peace when your mind is stayed upon thee. We had one automobile in our marriage, one automobile. Except when I was in school, in dental school, we had two because she was working, I was going to school, so we had two. But when we got back home, I finished my practice and started practicing. We had one automobile. Um, I spent a lot of time, my wife and I, together. She's the one that I would rather travel together and be with her more than anyone else. Whatever we've done, we've always done together. When she goes shopping, I go shopping with her. People say, you go shopping with your wife? Yeah, because it's, I can check on the money that's being spent. If she buys something that costs a lot of money, I say, honey, that don't look good on you. No, but I was really very honest. I really felt that I made the money, she spent it. And I love that. No problem at all. Because we've done everything together. She'd always been with me and we were one. But I've discovered that in a relationship, you learn something about one's personality and you learn something. So in a marriage relationship, there's war, you have conflicts, you have challenges, you really do, and challenges that come against you. When children come along, that's a very interesting combination. But I've discovered this one critical thing. Um, you have to learn to be one another's best friend. You have to. If you have people outside of your relationship that could be a friend to one of you, that requires more of your time than your time you spend it to one another, that to me was challenging. Um, no one was going to have more important time in our relationship with one of us than me or than her. That's why we spent time together. We made up our mind. We learned to forgive one another. We made up our mind that our parents, when they were living then, didn't have more influence in our relationship than one another. Our marriage was, we kept things a secret. We kept things in house. We didn't discuss our relationship with people outside of us because I figured if anybody had an opinion, it was the both of us. That's what we were. So we spent a lot of times together. We shared together. I don't think that you can standardize marriage. A lot of books have been written on it. If you do this, you do that. I don't really think that's the case because I think every marriage is distinct and different. It's separate and distinct in itself. That's because we're different in terms of our personality. I found out that when I married couples many times that have been married before, and I've shared with them many times that when you're getting married, you need to ask the question, why do you want to be married? Why do you want to be married again? Why did the first relationship fall apart? And you need to discover that very clearly. And I discovered that some people should never get married. Marriage is not for everyone, believe it or not. Uh, You're not made whole because of marriage. You're whole because God has made you whole. You don't have to marry someone to be whole. If you think that, then you'll get in serious trouble. So I said to people many times, why you want to be married? What do you know about one another? How do you react when you don't get your way? How do you do things when things don't go along the way you want them to? And can you live by yourself? Many times. So I found out that one of the critical things is that I ask people, why do you want to be married? If you're marrying for someone to make you whole, you'll be greatly disappointed. Because I promise you all the time, you'll never find that fulfillment in a person. Be honest with you, contentment cannot be discovered by marriage, nor divorce, by purchase, nor by selling anything. Contentment has to be discovered. And that's something you have to discover yourself. Paul said, I've learned in whatsoever state I'm in to be content. That's something you have to learn to be content. If you're waiting for someone to satisfy you, to be everything to you, you'll be greatly disappointed. I promise you that. So I found that in marriage, number one, you can't standardize it, but you have to find out. I go back to those love languages. I think it's interesting. In every relationship, you have what I call a breaker and a fixer. If you're married to a person that's a fixer, they're interesting people. They like to fix everything that's wrong. They like to fix everything that's wrong with everybody else, and that's time consuming. Every relationship, you also have a breaker. That's people who sort of just do things to create situations and problems, and that has to do with personality dynamics. And that's why I say that in every relationship, forgiveness is the strength over yesterday. Forgiveness is not memory loss, it's memory without vengeance. And in a relationship, regardless of anything, you have to learn, number one, what to remember and what to forget. And I say to men, don't two things you don't ever forget. Don't forget your anniversary date and don't forget her birthday. That's close to the unpardonable sin. I would strongly encourage you to write that down and record it in Braille to remember that. And I think you need to learn, number one, the things that are important in a relationship. And that's critical. What's important in your relationship? What's important? For us, I thought it was just the two of us, two of us. Before Bill Withers wrote the song, I think I sang it because it was just the two of us. We got married at an early age. We were in college together. We did everything together. Uh, we had our first child when she was in college. I was in college, and we stayed with her mother. And I found out we could stay with our mother during the early phases, but there came a time we had to get out because I found out that many times that family can impose things upon your relationship that's very damaging. I had a brother-in-law. He was a rascal. He was married to my wife's oldest sister. He was a rascal. When I say rascal, don't let me have to define that. He was a rascal. They had 10 children. And my mother-in-law, she had to understand that I was not him. And she would get me confused with him. And she would give me a hard time. And one day we had a face-to-face conversation. And I had to be very strong with her. I said, first of all, I don't know what your problem is with me. I'm not my brother-in-law. My name is Kirby. I'm not him. And you're accusing me of things that I've never done, will never do, and you're accusing me of being something that I'm not. I said, so, and I felt it was time for us to leave. So we had to move out and find our own place. I found that in a relationship, at some point in time, you have to find confidentiality. If you're staying in a relationship with a lot of people, a lot of input, and a lot of conversations and all, it can be damaging. At the beginning, that's fine, but sometimes it's absolutely necessary. For us at the beginning, it was because we didn't have very little money. We had a child, she was working, I was working, and but there came a time we had to move. So as you can see in a relationship for us, I think the critical thing was learning one another, learning how to heal, learning how to forgive. My wife had myasthenia gravis. It's a muscle weakening disease. Um, she had to take prednisone, and that causes changes in your body. You can go from your nice premarital size to you can go what she would call a Renaissance body, and that can cause changes in your personality dynamics. But I used to tell her, and I think she eventually saw it. I love you whether you're thin or small, because hear me carefully, children. Everything changes. Everything changes. When Paul said the outward man perishes or the outward man changes, but the inward man is renewed, it changes. And I would tell her constantly, I love you thin or small. It doesn't matter. I have enough love for both of us because I loved her as a person. Not because what she can do, not because what she looked like, My wife she had breast cancer. She had to have the breast removed. And she finally made a discussion one day in a public gathering. We had been married, I guess, maybe about 45 years. She said, Kirby loves me one breast, no breast, or two breasts. He loves me whether I'm thin or Renaissance body at all. He loves me like I am. She said, as a man of integrity, he said, I can lean upon them. And one of her love languages was reliability. She said, if I look up, I know he's going to always be there. Many times she had to be at the hospital, many times. We spent a lot of years in the hospital. Sometimes because of myasthenia, we didn't know when she was going to go in the hospital. And that many times that affected our children because when they were young, they didn't know if their mom was going to be well, if she was going to be sick, was she going to be in the hospital or not. And she never went in the hospital without me. And I always spent the night there. I would go to the hospital sometime and they would tell me, well, you can't stay here. I say, I am. I either stay in this room or I stay outside, but I'm going to be here. And don't try to get me to leave. She had heart surgery one time, and they didn't want you to stay in the room. And I never forgot they had a guard that came around and told us we had to leave. I said, brother, man, I'm going to tell you something right now. I said, I'm a Christian, I'm a pastor, and my wife she's had heart surgery and ain't going nowhere. And if you try to make me, we're going to have an altercation. I can tell you that right now. That's just not going to happen. I said, I'm going to be here with her. And I went back while she was recovering. I never forget she had a trach and she couldn't speak. She was trying to talk. And I remember. I remember I prayed over her. I prayed in the spirit. And I touched her face. And I said, I love you with all my heart. And you're going to be well. I said, if there's a God, and I'm convinced that there is, he's going to heal you, make you well. And I prayed in tongues, and I felt the presence of the Lord that was there with us. I felt the strength of our relationship was that we knew that there was a living God, and we knew that he had meaning in our life. And we prayed together. We wept together. We did all things together. So as you can see, our relationship was different. We became a part of a church. I never bought into this idea of male domination, of submission. My wife would never buy into that at all. We were always egalitarian in our relationship, always. Never had a problem until I got involved with these folk over here called Christians over here who believe that men should be dominate men and women should be in submission. And I didn't buy into it. So I called hell, excuse my French. I called the blues because they told me that if I didn't get my wife under control, that I was going to lose my anointing. I said, wow, that's very interesting. And so my wife and I always co-labored together. We believe in co-equality. We never made decisions unless the both of us were involved. And if we had something where we differed, we talked it through. So you can see that I don't really have a lot of standards by which I can say what you need to do to make your relationship fly. I can simply say this, if you fear the Lord, that'll help. Because I promise you, I believe that marriage is a commitment not to, in fact, marriage is a commitment to God. That's how I feel. And as a man, I felt that when I married my wife, I made a commitment. Her mother, when we got married and moved away to dental school, she came up to visit us. And she spent about a week there with us. She was cooking and staying there. I was my second year, and God had blessed us tremendously. I never paid to go to dental school. The Lord had blessed us with everything we needed. And the day before she left, she said to me, she sat down in a chair. I always remember this vision. She said, now I know that you will take care of my daughter. I guess that's the concern of a mother, to know that the children will be taken care of. And I told her to her face, I said, I wish you had discovered that early. I said, because I love her like I love my own flesh. So I dare say that when you love someone like you love your own flesh, it makes a big difference. When you learn how to forgive, when you learn how to speak kind words, when you don't let other people get into your life, not even religion or anything else, not at all. When you spend all the time together, and remember those love languages, we were practicing even before we knew them. My wife loved to receive gifts, but she wouldn't let you be creative. She would tell you what she wanted. on birthdays so that y'all don't get confused and buy something that I don't want. She would tell the children what she wanted for birthday. And I would always just tell her, buy anything you want. On Mother's Day or birthday, I just say, anything you want to buy is up to you. Because I love that she'd been with me all those years. So I guess in a way, I'm not too sure that I can give you a reason why it lasted, other than the fact that I love her with all my heart. I love her with all my heart. And she loved me. She trusted me. She believed that I would always be there for her. That was her love language. Consistency, dedication. Somebody would be honest. And mine was just her. That was all it was. She's been in a few days. She would have been transitioned 8 years, 8 years, and it's not a day that passes by that I don't think about her all moment. I have a lot of videos of us, and I replay them every day. I replay them, and people said, "You should move on to life." I said, "It's my life." I said, "Don't try to tell me how to move on." Uh, the clothes in her closet are the same as they were when she passed, and nobody can even try to tell me what to do. Because when it comes to grieving, that's a creative idea that I use myself. But I love her with all my heart, and I have many precious memories. Stay in the same home. I look around here and I see everything I see her. She was the creative one, the innovative one. Uh, I didn't get colors right. I'm a dentist and I still have problems with that. That's why I have to rely upon my staff. But she did wonderful things. I love the creativity in her. Wasn't anything about the woman that I didn't like. So let me stop. I didn't know if there might be some questions. Don't know if there are. If not, I'll leave and go get me something to eat.
All right, all right. It's the floor is open, beautiful people. It's your
You,
Yeah.
opportunity. Bishop, thank you for those
Bishop Kirby,
words.
you're gonna go get some biscuits. But
Now, who told you that? Who told you about the biscuits?
well, I've known you a long time, Bishop Kirby. I've been watching you. Anyway, what I want to know is the five love languages. You said one was giving gifts, the
Yes.
other one was words of affirmation.
Yeah.
Was number three attention,
Giving attention. Yes. Yeah.
and
Giving people.
number
Yeah. Yeah.
four,
Number four, and I'm trying to remember the other two. That's why I was struggling in my mind.
oh,
That's why they'll
Eyes,
come back to me
eyes,
just a few
nose,
minutes.
no.
I
It's
understand. I
it's
understand.
giving
I'll give you time. Love you.
Mom,
Thank you so
Mama
much.
Beverly,
Thank you.
Mama Beverly. It's giving gifts and it's
Yeah.
physical
Yeah.
touch,
Yeah. Giving gifts was a big one for some people.
and then physical touch.
Physical touch. That was it. That's one of the one. Some people need the physical touch, and I was always that way. I mean, I'm not so much a touchy feely person, but I love to touch people. Some people I don't like. I'm glad God told you to love them. He didn't tell you to like them. That freed me right there. You know, I got folk you just I don't know about your some folk you can't trust. And but yeah, the touching is good. That's good. Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Michelet.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
This is your opportunity,
Yeah,
everybody. Come
well,
on, I'm listening.
I'm listening. Yeah, I'm gonna go here. I'm listening, and as usual, the information, the fountain is so deep, we barely can grasp it all and take it in. And I'm looking at uh, your movement, sir, and as you spoke words of super wisdom is what I take it in as the the pause
Mm.
to me to be able to experience that because I watched my dad for years and I watched his movement and
Yeah.
yeah, that pause to me it explained everything
Yeah.
that you were trying to articulate.
Mm.
And for me to look at that moment, the memory of remembering will be etched here.
Mm.
So that's just
Thank you.
what I wanted to add. Amazing, just amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. We will all experience loss. Uh, it's appointed for all of us to live and then to die. I think that's of all of the questions that we ask sometime, will we have sufficiency? Will we If we come down with an incurable challenge, will faith in God be sufficient? But one is that will we be left alone? And we don't like to talk about that. That's why I vary every day. I don't waste moments. I don't waste time. I think to operate in unforgiveness and to have pouting and all of that, we didn't have time for that. I always felt life was too short, and that's something I can't I can't set on other people. Sometimes there's a reason to have war. Now we had our disagreements. We have our disagreements. We did, but we were able to resolve conflicts, I think, inside because that was a faith proposition that was there. And I guess there might have been some knowledge in my spirit, man, that I knew that she wouldn't always be with me physically, and I probably wanted to make the best of her moment. Yeah, but I still have my pauses. I still have my pauses. Yeah.
Bishop,
Thank you, Bishop Kirk.
yeah, go ahead, Brad.
Oh,
Brad, yeah.
I was gonna say thank you. Very timely message. The two things that stuck out to me or was your definition of forgiveness,
Mm.
remembering without vengeance,
Yeah.
and just the reminder that marriage is a commitment to God.
Yeah.
I don't think we realize that.
Mm.
So
Mm.
thank you for those.
Yeah. Yeah. When I marry people, when I say marriage should not be entered in irreverently, without an understanding that marriage in Scripture is related to Christ and the church. That's what it is. And I say that when you're married, and I say, let's make sure. And sometimes I'll tell them this would be a good time if you wanted to get out of this. I would say to the groom, just pass out, and I'll tell people, you know, you fainted. But I often say to them, I think we do make a commitment to God, and the fear of the Lord is something I never took lightly. Um, I've seen what happens when God stops talking to you. And I've seen the beauty when God gives you a creative idea. And that's something called the favor of God. And it's not without problems, but just one idea from the Lord. And I try to stay on his good side. And I've even developed something called the faith language. That is what you do to make God happy. And I found out there's some things you can do to make him happy. Number one, be consistent. Keep your commitment. That's number two. Don't quit. Let's say, love people. I'm saying, um, keep doing what he tells you to do until he tells you to stop. That makes God happy. He doesn't like excuses. Trust me, he doesn't like them. Doesn't like excuses. And I never try to give him some. So I have the faith language. What makes God happy? And one thing that makes him unhappy is complaining. Because when you complain, you're saying to him that he's not able or he's not capable. And he doesn't like that. I tell you what really makes him happy when you remind him of the wonderful things that he's done and the wonderful things he said. That's part of the love language, but that's part of the faith language. God really likes for us to tell him what the good things he's done in our life and the things that he said. I think that was Israel's problem. They forgot to tell him. That's Romans 1:21 through 30. When you tell him the good things he's done every day, I do it every day. That's part of my liturgy. Part of my liturgy.
Bishop, what is the uh, proper interpretation of the man being the head?
Proper interpretation of in creation, because remember now, the book of Genesis is the law of first mentioning. That's where there's the first introduction of God, male and female, and earth and world and all of that. And you need to understand the word head is not a governmental word. It literally means a source, point of origin. As in creation, when the Lord created, he created them, male and female. But the thing they think is that he created man, anthropos. No, it's an it that he created. And from the it, he took out male and female. So the word head in creation means that in creation, there was another person who was the source of all the others. But now, since that time, all of us have come from a woman. So I would dare say that the word head never infers that there's a male that's supposed to be in charge. Now, we have different functions. So the idea in creation looks like there was co-equality. God did not assign responsibilities or privileges to one different than the other. I mean, they had reproductive function and they look differently, thank God. But in terms of rights and privileges, God never said in the creational narratives that the woman should submit or be under the man, never one time. All of that was a consequence of the fall. And so we're living in the fall mentality today. In fact, if you don't have Genesis right, you will misinterpret First Corinthians and Ephesians and Timothy. All of those that talk about women being submission to your own husband. That was a cultural statement because the woman is the weaker vessel, not physically weak, but in that culture, women had no rights, no privileges. Hear me carefully. So when you're looking at Roman culture, women had no right; they couldn't even vote. Don't you remember that there was a time when Moses was living, when a man had 5 daughters, had no son, and when the man died, they were going to take the daughter's inheritance, and the daughters complained to God that wasn't right, and they went to Moses, and the Lord says to Moses, because everything that a father had, if he had a son, it went to the son. And the daughter said, our father did not have a son. So are you going to take everything that belongs to us? And the Lord said to Moses, they are right. Because the creational narrative never established male domination, female submission. It's a non-biblical term, and that's probably the death of many relationships. Hear me carefully.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, that's an ongoing battle. That conversation, that concept, and also, many relationships you see that it becomes a point of abuse,
It
and
does.
it becomes frustrating sometimes to see it, and then of course those who hold on to that don't want to let it go, don't even want to entertain it. But so the idea of co-laborship, which basically is the proper way of being, is one that I don't know if people work to develop that or even have an idea of what that looks like.
Well, the government of a marriage is up to the individual. I just have to say that. When I speak of co-equality, co-essentiality, co-functionality, when I throw out those terms, I say every couple, you all develop the government of your marriage. I had some couples where the husband loves to cook and clean, and the wife can't cook. In fact, one couple came to me and said, if she keeps cooking, it's going to compromise our marriage. She can't cook, but he loves to cook. He loves to do things around the house. I have some couples where sometimes the father is more nurturing than the mother when it comes to the children. So I say that the government of your marriage is based upon the two of you. You decide how you all want to function. If the female likes being submissive, if she loves that, if that's not a bothersome you, I don't try to dictate to that. Discover what works best for you. Just don't let the external world dictate your internal life. That's the only thing that I'm saying. But from a biblical standpoint, when I see domination and control, I have to come back and say, okay, all right, since you want to do that, let's look at this biblically and see the right way because it needs to be addressed. I wrote a book called Spiritual Intelligence. Chapter 13 is excellent when it comes to dealing with those kind of things. And the book we wrote, and he gave them. We did an exhaustive study. My wife and I used to do a lot of teaching on co-laborship, on beyond gender. And so we've done all the biblical research. We've done all the historic stuff. We looked at the apostolic fathers and how they got it messed up. You know what I mean? Because they always thought the woman was cursed. And that the reason women that you all have labor, pain, and childbirth, they thought was for the woman. But believe it or not, the serpent spoke to the woman, but the man was there. And they say he spoke to the woman first because the woman wasn't as smart. She came from the covering of her husband, and she had a right brain rather than left brain. I said, no, he was looking for the smartest of the two. And when he looked at the woman, he said, that is the one. Now, people didn't like that. Every time I say that, I divide the congregation very quickly. But I do believe that, in my judgment, now this may sound strange, but I think women are more discerning when it comes to men. Can I hear amen there? All right. Okay. I do believe that. Now, I found that I'm not trying to make that a concrete statement, but there are things that I think in our culture that women go through in their experience because discernment is learned behavior. And I do believe they develop a sensitivity. When you operate in what I call a patriarchal world, where men want to dominate, and sometimes you have to learn how to navigate through things. I don't think you can carry a child for 9 months without knowing a whole lot about it. I just don't believe that. So I find that when it comes to discernment, I found women seem to be more keen. They seem to listen differently. Now that's not always the case, and that's why I think in every relationship where the man and woman can work together. I can say this as a boast now. My wife and I were never deceived. And I can say that never made bad decisions. Never made bad decisions. Because I listened to her. She was governmentally strong. She was very discerning when it came to people. My staff at my dental office, my wife always hired and fired. She's the one who did everything. I told her I make the money, you spend it. That's fine for me. But she was keen. So we discovered our giftings. We had different giftings. I knew what mine was. I was strong in what I could do. She was strong in what she did. And we co-labored together. Never was a conflict. So I would say that when it comes to male domination, if that works for you, then that's fine. But once again, it goes back to personality. When you find two strong, dominant people, and we were strong and dominant, and we had to both learn, number one, what was the greater thing in our relationship. And I felt that peace and love and harmony. And uh, I think is it Tina? Tina Turner said, what love got to do with it? It's got a lot to do with it. I just have to say, Tina, you missed it on that. But love is not an emotion. Love is a conviction. And I believe at its highest level, it's conviction to God. But love is an investment. And as many people find out, there's room for divorce. I've counseled people that have gone through divorce several times. I married couples where one of them was married, this was their fifth marriage. And when I married him, I didn't bring up the idea they've been married many times. I did not. I did not. Because I don't know the reason. Sometimes you can marry the wrong person. That can happen. Sometimes you make a mistake. Sometimes you marry out of presumption. A lot of different reasons why people marry. And many times they go through divorce. And I've done much teaching and counseling on that. But I'd say always, before you get married, discover the reason why you get married. In fact, if you're trying to get ready to divorce, discover the reason why you're getting a divorce. And whenever I marry a couple, I make them make a commitment to me. If I married you, when you all decide you're going to go your separate ways, at least give me the privilege, to, number one, to be involved in the process. You understand?
Good stuff. Sounds like a life of discoveries.
Oh, that is the word, good Bishop. That is the word, right? That will preach, as we say. And that's what it is. I think in a relationship you discover something about others, but you discover something about yourself. Um, I didn't know a lot of things about myself until I got married. Um, Stress, difficulty, and challenges, they can bring out the best in you or bring out the worst in you. But when you set in your mind that you're in it for the long haul, you start discovering things that you don't like. But then, as I said before, marriage is not an equal opportunity employment. As I said before, in a marriage, the stronger reaches out to the weaker. And the weaker has nothing to do with emotion. It has to do with the fact that one is strong in another, and one is strong in another, and one is weak in another. And so you're right, it is a discovery. And that discovery never ends. It never ends. It never
Bishop, thank you
ends.
so much. Okay,
Well,
so do us this one favor to close, and starting with me and Gloria, pray over our marriages.
well, Father, I thank you in the blessed name of Jesus for this couple that you raised up, that you've commissioned them, Lord, to do work in your kingdom. I thank you for the wonderful children and grandchildren, and even further, many more to come unto their lives. I thank you that they've been good stewards. So I ask that you would give them the wisdom, the understanding that's needed in this life. I pray that you prosper the works of their hands. I pray and cause the things that you've caused them to set their hands to do, that they'll finish that course. I'm asking that you give them longevity of life. I'm praying for health and strength to their physical bodies and to their minds, that they be keen in mind, Lord, way up into their years. They can articulate the truths of God with a clarity and an understanding. And Lord, that there be no weakness within them. Let them see the many generations in their family come to pass, that they might worship you. So I commit them to you because they've been faithful steward. But above all, I thank you for you've been a faithful God to them. I honor you in Jesus' name.